Thank you for coming in and paying attention to us here at Understanding Behavioral Health. So where we come in and we bring people that work in here with the community at the Yakima Nation Behavioral Health, where we dive into the programs and what they have to offer our Indigenous community and surrounding areas. Some people do know, our behavioral health is a pretty big department itself, and we have multiple programs that do different things to help heal our community. And my name is Jordan Mananik, and I'm working with the Victims Resource Program. I am a victims advocate, and we have...
My name is Rachel Gregg. I'm the Social Marketing Communication Specialist for Systems of Care.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Garcia. I work for the Suicide Prevention Program.
My name is Ashley Whitefoot. I work with Yakima Nation Behavioral Health Services Victims Resource Program as the Domestic Violence Shelter Project Manager and Building Manager.
And then also behind the scenes we have...
Hey everyone, I'm Nashaya George. I work at Yakima Nation Behavioral Health Services as a project manager for our Systems of Care program. So I'll be here with you guys today as well.
So I don't know if any of you guys have paid attention to the other ones, but Nashaya, she did join us on a podcast before, and she's interested in learning how to do this, and so she wants us to be a part of it as it grows. So thank you, Nashaya, for becoming part of the team. As before, she introduced herself. Our special guest this podcast is Ashley Whitefoot, and she is here, and we're going to be talking about different things that she's been doing with the behavioral health, such as the shelter. It's been a big project that's been coming along for quite a while. So you want to kind of dive in when you started this?
Yes. So I've been working with Behavioral Health Services since March of 2019. We were awarded the Department of Justice Office of Victims Award, CTAS, in October of 2018. And so when I began, I come from multiple organizations with DV services, and the award began in 2018. I started 2019, and since then, so I started in 2019, just starting on the shelter project, trying to get it implemented and developed.
A good background of working in DV shelters and stuff. So, yes. I know you have worked in the YWCA. You've worked with neighborhood health. Mm-hmm. What are some of those things that you're bringing from those programs, and that you're going to implement with our DV shelter or our shelter?
So I worked with the YWCA for several years in their domestic violence services and their shelter as well as their housing program. But what I really want to bring with me from that experience is being more survivor-centered in the services that we provide, empowering the women, men, and children to make their decisions on their path to recovery from abuse. And so that's really what I want to bring with us when we open up our shelter and our services.
Nice. That's all good things. And so since you started this journey too back in 2018, what were some of the steps that you had to do to get to where you're at right now?
There was quite a few steps that I've had to do. Coming from different organizations, when I first started, I had to get used to the processes that the tribe has, because it's way different from, out in the other communities. So I had to get used to the processes that the tribe has, being able to understand what Victims Resource Program provides, as well as the multiple other projects that we have underneath Behavioral Health Services, and how our program provides a wraparound services to all individuals of many diverse areas in a community that they're needing. And so I had to really get used to how were we going to create these wraparound services and get them connected with the DV shelter participants as well.
Us being a sovereign nation, how does the difficulty relate compared to being an outward source? Say that you're in Yakima and then you came and you're bringing the shelter to the Yakima Nation. How big of a difference is that?
It's almost like two different worlds. So out in the other community, working with YWCA and working with neighborhood health, we had to follow a lot of state Washington codes and following city codes. And so for us being a sovereign nation, like we have our own codes that we have to abide by. And so for me, it's like, and the different types of fundings that we're awarded. So like with the YWCA, we had a certain type of funding where we had to follow DSHS requirements with our shelter. And then down here, like we don't necessarily have to follow those requirements. But because of that, like because we are open up to an opportunity of multiple other funding sources, I've kind of aligned the budget to kind of fit both needs, our sovereign needs, and then the Department of Justice requirements as well, just in case like we ever get that type of funding, we won't have to like readjust too much in the future.
Wow. That's good. That's good. You know, just always be ready for, you know, for other opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on actually to talk about the domestic violence shelter. Can you give us an overview of what the shelter is going to look like? Naturally, one would assume that the domestic violence shelter would be a place where people can go who are experiencing domestic violence for temporary shelter. But what else goes into that?
So like initially, so if we start like from the start to entering and then to exiting. So the goal is that if anybody is fleeing a domestic violence situation, and so we'll be serving individuals who are fleeing from domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, sex trafficking, dating violence, and children who've been sexually assaulted. Those are the individuals that will be allowed to come into the shelter. We're not going to do a co-ed shelter, so it's just going to be women and children. The men we will outsource, so like it's not that we won't provide them shelter. We will provide them shelter, just not in our shelter facility. So we'll like outsource them to a motel, hotel. And so when they come in, they'll go through an intake process. Anybody who enters in will have to like go through and agree to like the building responsibilities, so resident responsibilities. So they'll be responsible for like maintaining healthy environment, participating in cleaning, situations like that. And once they come into the shelter, we will have an advocate at the building 24 hours. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there'll always be an advocate on site available to meet with clients, bring them in, get them assessed. Once they come into the shelter, they'll continuously work with an advocate ongoing to meeting some goals that they're wanting to do to become self-sufficient and independent within themselves, to kind of get away from that economic abuse that they were experiencing with their abuser. And hopefully get them housed in permanent housing. And so that'll be like the process. So while they're in the shelter, they'll get to meet with an advocate. And even after they leave the shelter, my hope is that they continue having an advocate to follow along with them until that individual feels like they're safe and empowered to the point where they no longer need our services. So my goal is that it's not like, you're done with us, we're done. No, we want to ensure their stability, however long that takes.
So that being a traumatic event in a lot of people's lives, being in a domestic violence situation, and they just like, you're offering them the shelter as a safe place and a peace of mind for them. But what if they're just completely shut off and not ready for an intake? Is it a process that has to be done right away in order to even be admitted into the shelter?
That's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked that. So, no. So, like, if it's in a traumatic event and they come in and they're in this shock moment, like, they can't process anything, the last thing we want to do is re-traumatize them and then forcing them to do something that they're not yet comfortable with doing. And so, like, say if it happens at nighttime and somebody comes in or they get brought in from somebody, we wouldn't expect them to go through that intake process immediately. No, we want to ensure that we're not making them feel violated at any point. The hope is that it would be done within the first 24 hours, but also being client driven, like being survivor driven. Like, we want to make sure that they're at peace with where they're at, and they might not even decide to stay, and so we want to respect that as well.
A lot of traumatic stuff happens out there, and it's hard to to respect somebody's wishes when they just don't want to stay.
Yeah.
And and so before somebody decides to leave, is there like any kind of type of education that goes on before they leave, or do you just give them some information, like some pamphlets, hey, these are some numbers, stuff like that?
Yeah, so the goal is to prepare them. So like if they come in and they're willing to have those conversations, so I guess a better way to say it is that we don't want to force anything on them, but if they're willing to at least have those mild conversations and educating them as much as possible in that little time frame that they have, if that's what they're deciding to do, if they're deciding to leave, in my experience, and I know that this is a whole new community compared to where my experience comes from, but so like being able to like sit down and have those conversations with them, like, I respect your decision to leave. I want you to know that we are always here to help. You can reach us 24 hours a day when we become 24 hours. Like you can reach us 24 hours a day. Here's all the information you need. Just because you leave here doesn't mean you can't come back, because you can definitely come back. If a bed is available. If a bed is not available, we'll do what we can to get you somewhere safe. And then just having those conversations, hopefully we're giving them pamphlets to like the hotlines, to the YWCA, our services, and then hopefully like even doing like a follow-up appointment for the next day or the next couple of days. Like, hey, like you still have an advocate. Just because you don't want to stay in our shelter, that's okay. Like, let's follow up with your assigned advocate, and you can meet with them outside of here.
So that being said, also, what does a success story look like? The timeline of them being able to be in your shelter and then being released from your shelter and being in like a safe space or in a safe environment.
You can't put time on healing.
So ballpark of, you're not going to just let them just leave, or they'll leave on their own, or they're ready when they want to, or...
So normally a shelter houses somebody for 30 days. We hope that the hope is that they become self-sufficient and housed within the first 90 days of being in the shelter. And of course, that's an ongoing process. So each, I can't specifically say like this person is going to be the same thing as this person. Right. Like everybody's case is unique. Everybody's situation is unique. And each individual is unique. And so I don't feel comfortable saying that after 90 days, they immediately have to go.
Right.
Like, I don't feel comfortable saying that, because then I feel like I'm not part of the solution, that I'm just adding to the problem, right?
The stress of a time frame or a deadline that they would have to meet. And I only ask it just for the fact that it's ideal for people to not be afraid and a certain comfort for them to come and be like, this is a shelter for me to be successful and be better and heal and stuff like that. So that's kind of me. Previously being in a shelter, there was no time frame for me. Like I was homeless at one point, and I was in a strict shelter where I was locked down, and we had to sign in and out for a time frame and do chores and do all that, and speak about our successes during the day, like whether it's going to look for an apartment or going for a job and stuff. So they never forced me out of there, and I was willing to leave when I was wanting to, like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to just go move back to my home state and then go figure it out from there.
Yeah.
Because I felt so alone in that shelter with no family, no friends, nothing. And so, and they didn't ever force that on me, even as just being a single mother. They never forced me to like go ahead and if you're not done at this time, then you gotta leave. But if you're like not succeeding in like trying to better yourself, it's kind of hard. So it's just like I was utilizing all my advantages pretty much. Like, you want to help me find a place to live? Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but it's sometimes hard when you don't have like the comforting and the loving feeling and the warmth.
Yeah.
And especially in traumatic situations. Like I've been in those situations, and the only thing that I could ever utilize in regards to getting out of that is to call the police and call a safety person to help and come stay with me and remove myself from that situation. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you for sharing like your personal experience. You're amazing, and your story is amazing in itself. I know, like, for me, I was in an abusive relationship for 18 years, and I remember like trying to flee and trying to leave, and I'm from here. This is home for me, and so like back then in those days, like there was no shelter to go to, and I didn't know about the YWCA because I just was like my tribe, right? My community programs, my tribal programs. and so I didn't have that experience. I didn't have an opportunity to go to a shelter, and so I like that how you shared, like, you weren't forced to do anything. We will have, like, some rules in our shelter. Like, the idea is that if they're in the shelter, it's because they have nowhere to stay, right? That they have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And so the assumption is that they will be in the shelter every night because they have nowhere else to go. And that's, like, the most traumatizing time that's the most dangerous times, is like in the evening times. And so, like, the expectation is that they will be in the shelter at night. And when they come into the shelter, like the chore situation, I'm hopeful that when we promote doing the chores, it's like being a part of your home and your community. Like, this is your home. This is your temporary home. And
helping them rebuild those life skills.
Yes, getting them to, like,
reconditioning their mindset again.
Yes.
Their environment.
Yeah, and having them become one, like become one community, like having them help hold each other accountable, or, you know, be there for each other, because when they leave our shelter, like, really encouraging them to build and make relationships and rebuild relationships with family. Like, if it's absolutely no, that I don't want to do that, we don't force it. Like, but, like, building relationships, because once they leave our shelter, then they need those outside relationships. They need those people that are going to be there for them. They need to have ongoing healthy relationships that are going to be there to support them and encourage them to stay away from dangerous situations and relationships. And so my hope is that is what it is. But of course, like, if we have that one person who's not motivated for their own success and they're just buying time, I want to say also being compassionate to their process, but being understanding that there's a need for somebody who's waiting to come in who's as motivated. And so if we need to make those difficult decisions, then I'm prepared to do that. And not just cutting them dry. Like, maybe this program isn't the right program. Let's find a program that could work for you. Let's find something else, because you're not motivated here, but what can we do to get you motivated? What other program can help you better than I can? Because I'm obviously not. So situations like that is what I hope for.
Is there an age limit?
There's no age limit. If it is a child, though, so if it is a child who's under the age of 17 and under, and they've been sexually assaulted, the idea is that they come in with their parent, that they have their guardian come in with them.
I even think about that, like, you know, I know it's like for, like, individuals, you know, or families, you know, but I'd even think about, like, you know, what if, you know, it is somebody that's underage, that's something's going on, and, you know, the idea, you say, is for the child, the underage person, to come in with their parent or their guardian.
Mm-hmm.
But what if it's instance, you know, it's somebody that's that close?
What if it is their parent?
Yeah. What if the person that's, you know, abusing them or whatever it may be, like, then what?
Well, then we have to ask the questions: is the authorities involved? If the authorities are involved, is DSHS involved? Is Knocknamisha involved? Getting all of that information and understanding, like, who are we allowed to come into the shelter? And if it's whoever holds the guardianship over the child, if it's a 17-year-old and they're fleeing, then we would have to contact the proper agencies that could help this individual more than we could in the situation. And then seeing if they can just sign off and letting that person come in if they're at an appropriate age to be in a facility by themselves. But I mean, we'll just have to, like, figure it out when we get there, right? Like, I wish I had all the answers for every situation, but I don't have all the answers for every situation, and I wish that I did.
So it's going to be kind of like a trial and error, figure it out as we go.
Yeah. And like I said, I mentioned before at the beginning, like, this working within the tribe and doing this in the tribe is all new for me, and so I'm also learning as we go along. And so, like, that's good. Like, I'm glad that you asked me that, because now I can go and I can ask somebody else, like, hey, what do I do in this situation? You know.
So what made you want to apply for this position specifically then?
This position,
knowing that it hasn't been here, and then you having the experience bringing it to the people.
I'm gonna cry. That exactly. Sorry. When I saw the position posted, so as I mentioned, I'm a survivor of 18 years of abuse and not having any of the services. And so, before I started working at the YWCA, I honestly became numb to the situation. And when I started at the YWCA, I started finding my own healing through other women and helping them and being with them, building relationships with women who were so brave to leave, you know. And then when I seen this position specifically, I felt something inside me where I could do more. I could do what's not been really like VRP's been here for a long time, but the shelter part of it, like giving them somewhere to go to, because that's what I didn't have. I didn't have nowhere to go to. And so since I've been here, like it's kind of been healing my own trauma from my past. And so it's just a passion that I have. I don't know. Just being able to like give somewhere a place for people to come with their kids to get away. Because from my own experience, one, we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it, and it was somebody's business.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You know? It's what we didn't do. And it was my responsibility to stay, you know? It was my responsibility to stay and take care of my home. And that's what I was taught through the entirety of that relationship. And so, feeling like I didn't have anywhere to go, like if I went home to my mom's, or if I went to his mom's, or wherever I went, it was like, no, go back home. Like, he's coming back, you know. And so I don't want women to have to go through that. I want them to know that they can leave. And you can talk about it, and that you do have somewhere to go.
Opportunity of choice.
Yes.
You know, thank you for, you know, being vulnerable with us. Like, I know it's a big step to allow yourself to be vulnerable, you know, not just to us, but here as we're talking about, you know, what the behavioral health is going to be able to provide, and to let the community know, like, that you were hurt at one point, you were vulnerable, and you've gone through this. But I think that's what's going to make this so powerful, is that you've been there, you survived it, you lived through it, and you're going to be able to provide, you know, share your experiences with other survivors, and you're going to be able to help teach them, and you can let them know, like, hey, I know it's hard here in the beginning right now. It's going to feel like, you know, there's no hope, but there is.
Yes.
And you're going to be that light to them in the dark tunnel.
Yes, me and my team.
Oh, in the team, yes. And including me, yes, including me. It's not just you.
It's not just me. I cannot do this alone.
No, yeah. You know, VRP, you know, everybody that's, not even just VRP, but also like behavioral health, because, you know, the one thing that's going to make this, you know, shelter be, you know, kind of one of a kind is the fact that we have therapists there on site. We have a team that's going to be willing to do, you know, some of the case management, and like, hey, what are your goals? You know, we're here to support your choices and your decisions.
Yes.
How do we get you to where you want to be? You know, and so.
Speaking about the shelter, what is it going to look like?
What is it going to look like? So this is a sneak peek. Nobody else has viewed these out in the community, so you guys get the pleasure. So whoever's watching will get the first sneak peek. Okay. I see if I was pushing the right button. So here we go. Ready? So these are, if you see right here, so this is all one room. These two pictures right here are all one room. If you notice in this room right here, there is a jacuzzi tub. We are located at 511 South Elm Street. The jacuzzi tub no longer exists. It has been demoed.
Dang.
And so our facility that we're in now used to be the Quality Inn Motel, and so now we are Behavioral Health Services and the Health Department, Yakima Nation Health Department. So this is all one room, as you can see. And then so this picture here, you see this door right here, this is this shelter entrance door. And this right here is the stairwell that leads right up to upstairs to all the administrative offices. So what we did was we placed a wall here and a door at the doorway to prevent clients from wandering around the building, participants from wandering around the building, and to also respect the survivors' space, keeping them confidential, and just appreciating their own privacy. So all that is blocked off. And then you see here in this picture right here, the room that had the jacuzzi tub, that is this room right here. You see that it's been demoed. The flooring's ripped out. We got protective paper everywhere. And in this room right here, this is our advocate office. And so what we did was we built another room within the advocate office to kind of give some more space for storage. Sorry. With that, we determined that the parking lot that we had for the motel was too small for even just our staff. And so we wanted to ensure that not only did our staff, because our program is continue growing, and then we're going to be housing these individuals that may have their own vehicles, multiple cars maybe even. So this is what we did. So this entire lot back here was all weeds and camps. There was camps back here. And so what we did was we bulldozed it out. We cleared it all out. We had Wapanish come out and help us, which I was very thankful for them. So now we've extended the parking lot. It's fully fenced all the way around. There's no access without a key at the other end of the parking lot. So we have an extended parking lot that's going to meet the needs of all of our staff and all of our residents. And this is our advocate office. So we have an advocate stationed here, and as you go further over here, we'll have 2 more advocates stationed on the other side of the room. And that room that you saw that was being built, that is now a storage room for all of we've gotten donations from multiple community members, different other programs. We've also bought an abundance of hygiene products, clothing items that our participants may need when they enter our shelter, because we assume that when they're fleeing, they could flee with nothing but the clothes on their back. And so we want to make sure that when they come in, that they have some attire that they can have. Next slide. So that room with the jacuzzi tub, here it is again. So the jacuzzi tub where it used to sit, here is a kitchenette. So we have a kitchen with a sink, we have cupboards, we have a brand new stove, we have a brand new refrigerator. All the furniture is brand new. The kitchen table is brand new. The TV was bought brand new. And so right here is where the living area is going to be, the dining area, and then on this other side right here is the kitchen area. And in the same room we have a bathroom, and so they'll be able to access the bathroom when they're in the living space as well. Below the TV, we're going to put like a little toy box and a little like kids table and chair, so that way the kids can sit there and kind of congregate and play around, trying to make it look as homey as possible. And then this is one of the bedrooms. So in the rooms we will have two of the rooms will be specified for families who can fit up to 8 of a family size, and then we will have 3 single rooms that will fit 3 individuals in each room. And so that's how many we'll be able to house at one time. We do have 2 handicap accessible rooms, 1 family handicap accessible room and 1 single room handicap accessible, just to kind of cover that.
Okay.
We do have a courtyard. I didn't take any pictures of the courtyard, but we do have a fenced courtyard where the moms can go outside and hang out. We have a pergola. I almost forgot what it was called, but we have a pergola with the table where moms and kids can just kind of go outside and hang out and get some fresh air. So that way they're just not, you have to stay in the shelter and only the shelter. No, like you can go outside, you can play, you can hang out, get some fresh air, get some vitamin C, or is it vitamin D? Vitamin something, get some vitamin something.
whatever the outside provides.
But the goal is like just giving them their space, you know.
We don't want to make it sound like a prison.
Yes. So that'll be available to them as well.
Well, it's great to see those pictures, to see a little bit about what it looked like before and after.
Yes.
It kind of shows like that there's a lot of work that has gone into developing this. This has been in the works for several years,
Yes.
and it's finally coming to a point where it's almost ready to begin.
Close.
Yeah. Can you share with us a couple of things? One, have there been any roadblocks that have made it challenging to get to this point? And then two, do you have a general timeline for when the shelter will open?
Yes. So there have been many roadblocks along the path. So first one being is COVID hit, which put us and our whole nation to a halt for a whole, I mean, you all know how long it's been. So procuring a facility was like the biggest thing. So we were trying to procure a facility. Interactions in person were really hard. I looked at multiple different locations during COVID.
Yeah. I think I went on a couple of them.
Yeah, so like we drove around town looking. We were looking at Wapato. We were looking at Dominish. We were looking everywhere through COVID, and we couldn't with our funding. Our funding is it's not really open. Like I can't just go buy a building, you know. And so there was a lot of different things, a lot of different roadblocks that I had to like kind of hurdle over and learn. Like I said in the beginning, like this is all learning process for me too. And so just kind of going through that. Another one was when we finally obtained the building that we currently have, it was not up to par. So like we had to meet codes, and so like we had to go through the renovations, and then that process even like we have to, the tribe has a process when we do certain things, and so like having to follow that process and making sure that we're doing everything exactly as it's aligned to do, and following the proper channels. But I mean, we're getting there. We're getting really close. My goal was to have the doors open by March 1st, but because there's still some minor things, like we need to put the locks on the doors to keep, you know, so that way the shelter residents can enter and leave whenever they want. And then there's a little bit of security things that we have to also do. And then we also have to put, like, making sure that there's extinguishers in the building, that all of those are all in place, so that way we're following all the codes. We have a really good relationship with the city of Toppenish. So in this time, I've been able to like really go out and outreach with the city and with the fire department, because the fire department essentially is going to be the one who's going to respond if there's a fire at our facility. And so like having that relationship with them, and they've been really helpful on helping me get the building up to code, working with a lot of our program facilities and maintenance and all of those other programs. Like they've been really helpful. So my goal is, I am really hopeful that we will get to open at the end of April is my hope. Don't set it in stone. Please don't set it in stone.
You heard it here first.
I did not slam the gavel.
Let it not be an April Fool's joke.
That's my end. But I'm really hopeful that we can start getting.
Wow.
Yes.
So it's coming up close.
It's coming close.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Just putting the final touches on.
Yes.
Yeah,
How does that feel?
This is probably my biggest accomplishment in all of my career years. So,
Wow.
I've implemented different programs at different agencies. That's kind of like my thing to do. Is I come in, I see a program, and I implement it, and I train it, and I teach people it, and then I go on and I do the same thing, and I do the same thing, and this is my biggest one that I've ever implemented, and so it's really honoring. I'm proud.
You know, I do want to say, like, you kind of talking about, this is what I do. I'm Ashley. I start programs. I watch it flourish, and after it flourishes, I go do it somewhere else. And then I remember at one point you're like, there's other people trying to poach me. They want me to start this program, and I remember you saying you're contemplating if you should do it or not, and look at you, like you stayed, and look because you stayed. Look what you're able to do.
Yes,
I'm glad you stayed.
I don't think I could ever leave, because like I'm passionate. Like I'm helping my people. I'm helping Indigenous women. I'm helping the children. Like I'm being a part of a solution where I don't want to say we are doing it. Like I get to participate in being a part of a team that ends this cycle of historical trauma that our community has to endure, and giving them an opportunity where they don't have to endure that anymore. Like we as a team, like even all of you guys, like we're all doing this together, and like when I say that, it's because like the days where it's been hard and where I felt like I've ran into a brick wall time and time again, like if it hadn't been for any of you guys and the rest of the team, like I don't know if I would have like just picked myself right back up and just kept going forward, you know, because there's been many of those days where like I felt like I was beating my head against a brick wall, but because of the relationships that I built and I see the passion that my team has about giving this community an opportunity to have something different, like that's what's really helped me along the way. So I don't know, I think I work for a really great team.
Well, I definitely applaud you, Ashley, for all of the work that you've done.
Thank you.
This is such a huge task to take on, to start up a domestic violence shelter. It's been great to hear a little bit about your background and your story, the previous relationship that you had, and feeling like there was nowhere to go. But now here you are working to develop a place for people to have somewhere to go. And then I've also learned a lot about, just sitting here talking with you, learning about a lot of the different things that go into putting this on. So many things that I didn't even consider, like even though this is a tribal program and resource, you still have to have relationships with the city and the fire department and the police department and even the nitty gritty things like the building being up to code and just putting on those final touches. It's finally kind of wrapping up. It's going to be started. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see how the shelter develops and continues moving forward.
Yes, thank you.
I don't know what to say. Just because like this is a lot. This is a lot, and you are the main person that's been head spearing this, and like Jeremy said, I applaud you. Like this is something that as you know, that our tribe made it for a long time, and we're able to provide that.
Yep. Thank you for the work you do. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? Any final?
We are accepting donations. So if anybody within the community, I've gotten a lot of calls from different programs, from different people who are wondering if we are accepting donations. We are.
What kind of donations?
So we're accepting any unused hygiene products. We are accepting clothing donations, a wide range of children, infants, adults, men, and women. Shoes, if they're slightly used. Out of clothing, the one thing we don't accept is underwear. So we don't accept used underwear. We don't think that that's very hygienic. But we are accepting like different types of I know, it's so
I only get underwear once a year, and that's during Christmas.
Christmas. I got it in my stocking.
I've been good, Santa.
But we are accepting donations, and donations can be dropped off at 511 South Elm Street. You just ask for Andrea Batten. You can turn them into her, and she will process them. I do want to also include, like, we will be going through like a bed bug treatment process.
Oh, nice.
I didn't mention this. So when clients do come in, they will have to go through a bed bug treatment process. There's no getting away from that. So that is another reason why we give them new clothing, is because we want to take the clothing that they have, wash it, heat treat it, any other belongings that they bring in with them. If they're able to be heat treated, they will be heat treated. And this is for the safety of our entire building. So we want to make sure that we don't have an outbreak or an infestation of bed bugs or cockroaches. And so we do have a safety protocol when entering into our shelter. And so when we accept donations, those donations also go through the bed bug treatment process. And so they'll get heat treated, they'll get sorted through to make sure that there's nothing that can put our facility in harm's way.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any other questions, you guys?
No, I think I'm all good.
No? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today's podcast of Understanding Behavioral Health. Once again, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't forget to check us out on any of our other previous podcasts. It's all good stuff. Peace out.
Pretty sure.